Morning.
Good morning.
Both Anas Sarwar and John Swinney have said they would debate you. Would you be willing to debate them? And if not yourself, when do you think you would have a Scottish leader for reform who could maybe do that?
Would I debate them? Will you hold my jacket? I'd be delighted to. Of course I'd be delighted to. When are we going to have a Scottish leader? I think I can refer you back to the answer that I gave the Telegraph, that we are a mid-teenage year political movement that is evolving in Scotland into a fully fledged political party, the way that it has south of the border, because of our emphasis on it with the run-up to May the 1st. All in good time is the answer to your question. And by the way, I do want Reform Scotland to be as autonomous as it possibly can be, and that is absolutely our intention. All right. Very, very good. Michael Andrew Blackley from the Scottish Daily Mail.
Hello, thank you. Good morning. There was more polling for the Scottish Parliament elections out at the weekend. You've got a sizable share of the vote, but it's pretty clear from that polling that the SNP, despite collapsing compared to 2021, is still going to win by a mile. So are you concerned that actually you could be the man to save the SNP and give them another term at Holyrood?
Well, even if we didn't exist, I think you'd find the Labour vote next year would be significantly down from where it was in the general election of 2024. We are a fresh voice in Scottish Parliament, making different arguments, as you can see this morning on this stage, to those that are being made by the other political parties. And you know what? Even in opposition in Holyrood, and even in the run-up to those elections, I think one of the things that I would stand on the track record that Richard and I have got, is we're actually quite good at shifting national debate and shifting government policy, regardless whether we're in power or not. So I believe we can have a significant impact on policy from now going all the way through. And by the way, on oil and gas, on the whole net zero debate, this is almost the next Brexit, where you have, you have Westminster, you've had Edinburgh, you have Cardiff, all have been wedded to one particular point of view. Us, as the minority voice inside those institutions, but increasingly a majority voice out in the rest of the country. Believe me, the scales are falling off the eyes of the public when it comes to net zero. They realise that we are putting upon ourselves a massive cost, let alone the opportunity cost of what we're missing, when we globally produce less than 1% of global carbon dioxide, that percentage falling every single year. And when they actually understand that when we close down refineries, think Grangemouth, when we close down steelworks, think Scotland going back a few years, all we're doing is exporting the emissions of CO2 with the goods then being shipped back to us. The public are waking up to this, and very, very quickly, I might argue. Conor Gillies from Sky News.
Mr Farage, Anas Sarwar has called you a pathetic, poisonous little man. John Swinney says you're not really interested in Scotland. Are they right? And second of all, have you ruled out standing for Holyrood next year?
I have ruled out standing for Holyrood next year. I am not a Scot. Beyond playing golf and attempting to catch salmon and a few bits of family, I don't have Scottish connections. Even when I was in business, I didn't have much. I had some, but not much north of the border. So I will not be standing for Holyrood. That would be wrong in every way. And you know what? The more they insult me, the more I know we must be doing something right. And I think they're in a blind state of panic. They're chucking around all sorts of insults. I thought the First Minister yesterday was frankly insightful in what he said. But for today, I will not return the compliment. We'll let the public make their own minds up. I'm not going to get involved in a war of words.
But do you think you started that by mischaracterising Anas Sarwar's words, just to follow up on what James said earlier?
No, Mr Sarwar seems to be obsessed with race. I've mentioned this already to the BBC man sitting on your right. Speeches in the Parliament about why is everybody white? What's wrong with Scotland? And we just don't see things like that. And I think that speech was a sectarian speech.
You know what the context of that speech was?
I don't know.
So you're putting...
Oh, yes, I do. It was the independence. Pakistani independence. Yes, it was. Yeah, OK, I get that. But
The speech in Parliament was about Pakistani independence.
I think, yes, the speech that he gave when he talked about the South Asian community and what we can do. I think our view is that we ought to be as colourblind and as race blind as we possibly can be. People have their own private practices and religions.
With respect, though, you're the party that are putting out videos about race.
Well, we didn't start it. No, you asked me, did I start it? No, he did. Of that, I have no doubt at all. Stephen Brown, STV News.
Morning. You've come here spoken an awful lot about oil and gas, very little about renewables. What is your investment plan for renewables? Indeed, for the 50,000 people in Scotland who are now directly and indirectly employed in renewables, some of them will be concerned about your rhetoric around net zero and what that might mean for their future jobs.
Well, I don't mind renewables. If renewables work and can stand on their own 2 feet, that's fantastic. But at the moment it can't, it never has done, and it's directly contributed to energy bills being, as I've said already, the most expensive industrial energy in the world, which is disastrous throughout all levels of industry. So if renewables can stand on their own 2 feet, good, but let's not con ourselves. These wind turbines aren't being made here, these solar panels aren't being made here. I think there are some very serious questions. Going ahead, as I've answered already to local radio, if we can make these renewable energies work, if we can make, battery storage, if this stuff can work, fine. And investment will continue to go into those areas. But to make ourselves too reliant on intermittent energy would be a massive, massive strategic mistake.
And you've spoken about the idea of oil and gas licences in the future, potentially requiring an equity stake within that from government.
Yeah.
How much taxpayer money are you willing to throw at oil and gas licences in the future, which by their very nature, as the oil and gas declines in the North Sea, will become far riskier?
There is risk to it. There is this, but the rewards are absolutely enormous. Just look at the way Norway's approached its whole industry. They had stakes in these right from the very start. They've had a sovereign wealth fund. We just need to look across the North Sea to see some very good examples of how things can be done. Thank you very much. Alistair Clark of the Courier.
Morning. You're referring to 2 speeches that you say Anas Sarwar made. The second of those, are you sure you're not referring to one that Hamza Yousaf made in Parliament? Secondly, for Councillor Massey, if I may, the Tories and SNP have fought between Aberdeen seats up here for a long time. What do you think's gone wrong with the Scottish Conservatives that you've decided to leave?
Look, I'm not going to delve any more deeply into comments by Mr. Sarwar about me, or indeed the First Minister. I think we've said enough on that. Scottish Conservatives have stood for nothing for a very, very long time. They haven't had the courage to stand up against some of the stupidities that have been done in Scotland, but maybe our former Conservative councillor, as half an hour ago, can answer it better than me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think, the SNP are doubling down on their anti-oil and gas record. I think it was only the other day when the SNP said that they were, fully focused on net zero. I think, going back to Conservatives, obviously I've got respect for my Conservative colleagues, but I think they have failed to set out a vision for Scotland and for the UK, and I think Reform has done that and is doing that, and, we're very much in Scotland the start-up party that is pushing ahead with sensible policies for energy and for oil and gas.
Thank you. Stephen Carroll from The Guardian.